I slept with my daughter's ex-boyfriend. He got me pregnant and I had an abortion. They got back together and got married. This was back in, let me think, maybe 1997. I was 38 and my daughter was 18 and she was dating Harry, who was 24. I was an alcoholic and dabbled in other drugs, mostly cocaine. I was not a good person, let alone mother. Not like I was abusive to my daughter or anything, but I was generally inattentive and cared more about my alcohol and drugs than her, especially in her teen years. I am 14 years sober now. I disapproved of my daughter dating Harry, but I never told her why. He would flirt with me, constantly, and the age difference also creeped me out. Also, he was an alcoholic and drug user, just like me. She broke up with him over his alcoholism. Soon after she moved away, not too far, but regardless, she didn't live with me anymore. Harry kept calling me and asking if we wanted to get drinks. I turned him down, but then one day he said he had a bunch of coke and I couldn't resist. He came over, we did the coke, and we ended up having sex. He was a very good-looking guy. He looked a lot like that ridiculous 80s Justin Bieber picture that was on the front page today. That is actually what made me think about him. For the next few months, maybe like 3-4 months, he would sometimes come over and we would have sex and do drugs and get drunk together. Any drug addict knows what that is like to have a drug addict buddy in that way. Then I got pregnant. I knew it was by him. I had sex without a condom a few times stupidly. I never told him I was pregnant, and I went and got the abortion and kept it a secret. Anyways, I stopped seeing him after that. It was too weird. I also got sober for like 4 months before relapsing. Fast forward 2 years, and my daughter contacts me and tells me that she got back with Harry and that he is fully sober. I was mortified, honestly. He was going to tell her that we slept together, and she is going to hate me for life. They came over one day and said hi, and when my daughter was gone, Harry told me that there is no reason to tell her about what happened. I agreed. It's been 16 years of marriage on their part. They have a kid together. Harry got cancer, then beat it. I got sober. That's basically it. I don't see them very often. They live in Texas and I live on the East Coast. But whenever I do, there is always that tension between me and Harry. It's literally the first thing that comes to either of our minds. I can just tell. Not like sexual tension, like, why did we have to do that? What the fuck is wrong with us? Kind of tension. I think about this often, especially when I see my grandson. I always think that could have been my son if things had gone differently. But wow, what a disaster that would have been if I decided to keep that child. Update. Found out my dead best friend was in love with my wife. I'm writing this as a confession because I don't know where else to speak about this, and I don't want my kids finding this out on my main account. My friend died a few months back due to heart problems. He was taking care of himself, so it was a shock to everyone, especially his wife who was with him at their house when he died. Due to this, she decided to move somewhere else, and because she and her daughter were still distraught, she asked me to pack up his stuff. He had some boxes in his basement, and after a while I started feeling nostalgic and decided to look into them. I found pictures of us from when we were kids, all the way to before we got married. That was enough to make me feel bad, and I just got back to taping them up. But one of the boxes seemed to be in much better condition, so I decided to check it in case it was something important. To my surprise, I found out pictures of him and my wife from when we used to hang out together, as well as more recent pictures from family reunions. The most recent being from my wife's birthday party. Alongside the pictures, there were letters that he never sent her. The first one dated 2 months before I met her. The last one was also the same date of her birthday party. There was one that stood out the most, was one from after I started dating her. He wrote that his time had passed, and since my happiness was as important as his own, he would watch over us. I'll keep his box safe since it isn't my secret to reveal. Update. I stole my dad's car at night to lose my virginity to a chick I had never met. Hi, I'm 20 now, but this happened when I was barely 16. I met this girl on Hot or Not who said she wanted to have her way W me, so I was like, dope, I'm gonna get some good strange for my first time. I decided to meet up W her on a Friday night. I waited for my parents to go to sleep, then snuck out my window and my dad's keys and stole his car to meet this girl I had never met, Arl. I call her on my parents' house phone right before I sneak out to make sure she knows I'm coming over. They took my cell phone at night. So I get there, and guess what? She not there. I drive back to the McDonald's down the road from her place and call her using the phone number I had written on my handwritten Google Maps directions. Again, had no cell. She tells me she will be home in 30 minutes, so I wait it out. I go there around 12:30 a.m. and she's waiting for me out on the porch. I walk up and I was like, oh shit, she's a lot less attractive than in her pics, but I'm already here and went through this much shit to get here, so fuck it, why not? We do the thing while on the floor, and 2 days later, I got ringworm on my ass cheek. I also neglected to tell her I was a virgin till I was done smashing. Haven't told anyone except my close guy friends that story. Update, I met my current boyfriend by slipping him my number while he was on a date with someone else, and I was their server. I used to work at a cheesecake factory as a server. About 1.5 years ago, my current boyfriend came in with some other girl for a date. I'm not sure what it is about my boyfriend, but he just does it for me. He's not at all my normal type of guy I'm attracted to, but for some reason he just makes me melt every time I look at him. He's got this super self-assured smile, and something about the way he talks gets me. He's got this little chuckle he does, and he always looks down and bites his lip after. He's just like it for me. So I immediately rushed over to their table. Typically, if I saw a guy I was attracted to, I could give better service because I genuinely wanted to interact with him and everyone at the table, and that usually lead to nicer tips. When I started serving them, I couldn't help myself, and I was flirting super obviously. So much so my coworkers were telling me to be careful I didn't get complained on. But he flirted back, so I was like a shark who smelled blood in the water. I spent so much time talking to him at their table. Other tables I was serving had to call out to me because I'd forget about them. Honestly, looking back, that was more of a date for me and him than her and him, because we talked about what he did for work, what I studied, what my favorite foods are, what he likes, music. I must have been at that table, accumulatively, for around 40 minutes. At the end of it, she was being very short with me and him, and I kind of figured she'd complain. So I said screw it, scribbled my number down, and put it under his card when I gave it back to him. He texted me that night, and we've basically been dating since. I'm moving in with him on Friday. It was honestly a very rude and shitty thing to do, but I'd do it over again in a second. Update, I sent a prostitute to my boss's hotel room. This was an accident and happened about 10 years ago. I had recently joined a Chinese-owned company in a fairly prominent position, and being the only white guy in the company, they liked to send me to trade shows in China to indicate that the company was definitely not Chinese. I was sent to Guangzhou to the Hotel Dongfang, just around the corner from the convention center. Extraneous detail not really needed, but here to show this is genuine. Of course, with a convention center in town with many visitors, the prostitute madam's agents were out in force. Most of the people handing out cards for whores were very young kids, seriously young. They looked about 10 years old or younger. Often the only English they spoke was, "You buy so cheap." Every time I went out, I had kids pushing cards into my hands, into my pockets, or dropped into any boxes I was carrying. Most of the time, that was that. End of story. On my second to last day, I went out with the sole intention of buying presents for my wife and daughter, when after the first shop I was approached by an older madam who would not leave me alone. Every step of the way she kept with me, encouraging me to buy so cheap. Even my protestations that I was married and not interested was met with, "Your wife not here, you buy so cheap." Eventually she said, "Tell me your room number. I send girl to your room, just $200. Thinking this was the best way to get rid of her, I said, $200? Okay, I'm in room 1024, and then carried on shopping. Since this was a fake room number and I had no intention of carrying out the transaction, I promptly forgot about it. Next day, last day of the show, I was told the boss had flown to Beijing and I was needed to help a colleague collect some stuff from his hotel room. I walked with my colleague, dodging the kids with prostitute cards, back to the hotel until I was standing outside my boss's room, room 1024. I have never ever dared ask or say anything to my boss about this. Only my wife knows this story, and so too do you.